from the video you can see that they've actually worked across 3 different divisions, so 3 different kind of areas, and that means working with different managers. So this is also part of it. It takes a lot of time to get into the organisation and see that different managers have different responsibilities for different job roles, and just talk us through some of that, finding out what those jobs needed.
Hi everyone. Okay, so my role with EPIC was, for me it was really important for this to work, was to actually build relationships and actually know the business. So that was kind of like a longer process because, as it's just been said, I've been working with 3 different managers in different areas. So it's one of the things that Tash and I kind of like looked at was, okay, so we're going to be the driving force, however we still need those champions that we can work with that have got the same passion and want to employ people with disabilities and give them the opportunity not only to gain but to maintain the employment. So it was about 4 months, I think. It was just around meeting the managers, talking to them what their roles are, what jobs needed to be covered in each area that they were managing. So I got a really good insight into, what was required from the participants that I was going to be putting forward. And then it was looking around getting the job criteria. And it's kind of like worked really well. It kind of like came up with a matrix. So with our participants, if they met 70% of the criteria of the job role, I would then look at the 30% and how we as an organisation could then support our participants to, be suitable for that position. Because the one thing we've never done is we will not set our participants up to fail. Because a lot of our participants have had negative experiences, and that was one of the things that we identified, and I think it's been said throughout the morning, is around the interview process. A lot of our participants had disclosed disabilities, and from that, they've had an horrendous experience. So we've kind of like come up with a process where we talk to the participants around, the disclosure of the disability. It's, they do not have to answer that, but if the managers that I'm working with have an understanding of what the barriers are for our participants, they're going to be more understanding and be able to support not only EPIC, but the participants in the workplace. So all the participants that we put forward to Ladies Lanto positions have actually, every single one of our participants has disclosed their disability. And the other thing was that we changed the way that we interviewed. So we do not do formal interviews, we do very informal ones. And one of the ways that we've done that is that we just walk around the hospital and have a chat and say, this is an area that you may be working in. Is it something that you think you would like to do? So it's kind of like, just very informal, and it's worked really well because a lot of our participants, because of the negative experiences of, they get really, really anxious, and that's not nice. So that's worked really, really well, and it's a process that we're continuing to do. What else have we done? Oh, we've done such a lot, haven't we?
Do you want to come in a little bit on how it's been because it's quite a lot of work for you.
Sorry, there are other things that I do. The other thing that I do is that I attend the hospital. I usually say I go in every 2 weeks, and that way I maintain my relationship with the managers, but I also make sure that the participants are okay as well. If there are any kind of like barriers, they just call me, we go in, we problem solve. A simple example was one of the ladies, Gabby, she's a cleaner, and she was getting very, very anxious because she was getting lost on her level. So a simple thing is we went in, we printed off the floor plan, and then we just highlighted all the areas and where all the bins were, because she was really getting anxious that she wasn't emptying bins. So we just highlighted all the colours, so she just needed that for, I think it was about 4 days. She's absolutely loving it now. The other thing I do as well is that every 3 months I go in and I have a review with the manager and the participant, and we we kind of like see how everything's going from the employer perspective, but also from the participants as well. And that's the time that I start negotiating for permanent contracts. Joseph, who you saw up there, he started off on 3 days a week, doing 4 hours a day. He's now got a permanent contract working full time. So, that's one of the things. I'm very proactive, I'm very hands-on, and I think that is one of the most important things, is that, just because you've made those relationships with, the managers, that's something that you need to maintain.
I think a little interesting thing about Joey is he just actually won our Employee of the Month, which was brilliant and completely on his own merit. A fabulous nomination from his peers for his teamwork and also his ability to identify potential hazard within the hospital. So there was some incorrect waste. So we had cytotoxic waste within the general waste area. So a lot of quite technical stuff for him to deal with, and I think our own expectations for Joe, which we set, he's far exceeded, and as he would. So, and he's a school leaver as well. Fabulous kid. I think with us, the key here has certainly been the amount of support that Epic has provided our managers, and as Natalie was just talking through all of the post-placement support that she's provided, has added to our managers having that confidence with employing people with disability. So we started this program really going in a little bit blind. I read our company disability engagement policy, and the very, very, very first line says we will help people with disability to compete equitably for roles. And I looked at that and I thought, what exactly are we doing to help people with disability compete equitably for roles? Pretty much they were anybody that applied to us had to come through an online system. They had to answer 100 questions. Feel free to go onto our website and try to apply for a role. It's still there today. We were putting up our own little barriers there, preventing people, from all walks of life to be able to apply for employment with us. So once I met with the guys from Epic and Ted put me in contact with Natalie, we made a little pact that we were never going to set somebody up to fail. I was tired of interviewing people with disability that did not suit or were not compatible for the role that we were looking for. So I'd probably put some roadblocks up within my recruitment role within the organisation over time, just through disappointment myself. But we got to a point where we had this mutual understanding about what we were going to do going forward, and the reality is from that point on I really stepped back, and our managers are the people that have driven this program within Lady Sorrento Hospital. One of the things that were discussed earlier on today is usually the champions are someone that may have somebody within their personal life that has disability, and I will say that 2 of those managers certainly did. We now have people coming through Epic Assist and joining our mainstream applicants for competing for roles and certainly achieving employment contracts with us by being able to compete equitably for roles. I think it's fabulous.
I might just open it up a bit and also talk a little bit about workplace adjustments, as we call it in Australia. And I think, Randy, can you tell us a bit more about what was done as part of that process at Walgreens, about some of the workplace modifications? Because last night I had the benefit of hearing Randy speak with Minister Ajaka, and you were talking really about some quite simple things that were very powerful.
42. So we're going to get a winner before we leave here. It's interesting what Tasha said. She said they just did it. I would like to make that observation. A lot of people, corporately, we like to plan. And I've seen 2 approaches to this. Your approach is successful, which is ours. It's called this. The shortest distance between point A and point B is Did y'all go through this in school? If you know who Hannibal is, you should know the answer to this. Or y'all were humanities people and not the geometry people. It's a straight line. We set a goal and we start working toward it. A lot of people go, we need to, what I call the field of dreams approach, which is we need to do this, so what do we need to do? We need to work on an accommodation system so we can screen accommodations, decide which ones are preferable, or we need to work on our minority interests, our disability-owned enterprises that we contract out to, or we need to create an employee resource group so they can meet together and figure out how we can do better. That's kind of like planting the field and hoping the birds come over and drop these wonderful plants down there. It always takes too long, it's too expensive, and a lot of people never come out to plant them. That being said, adjustments. Do we use the word here in Australia, accommodations or adjustments? Adjustments, okay. The word in the United States they use is accommodations. It's not a very good word. It's kind of like we say self-disclosure here. Isn't it right, disclose? Disclose. We use the word self-identify. So we get past it that way. Accommodations usually means lawsuits and things we're forced to do. So we use the word adjustments because that's something we do every day. Most of our adjustments were less than $25. Most of them were paper and pencil. Something as simple as, and they were done by managers, not done by experts. Just figuring out what works. And one of the things that we learned very early on is a concept in the disability community called momentum. Take something that already has motivation behind it and use that to extend motivation to something not necessarily else that they want to do, the person wants to do. For instance, we had one young man who would never come back from break on time. But he loves Barack Obama. So what his manager did is they got this big cutout of Barack. You've seen those? Really hip looking, cool looking guy. And they put a big cutout like a cartoon and it says, Michael, get back from break on time. And they stood it up in his area. And he's reminded him. As simple as that. The person who has obsessive compulsive disorder was focusing too hard on how he was cutting the cases. He could never cut enough or get through his whole process because cutting cases was part of the process. He could never get through that because he was focusing so much on how he was doing it. His supervisor took a piece of paper and put little boxes for each case that he's supposed to do in 10 minutes. And now he focuses on getting through the pieces of paper. Not how he's just, it was simple things like that, and in the process, released a ton of creativity. When you go to those buildings, and I've got to suspect it's the same for you, you hear the managers talk about how the impact it's had on them because they want to make everybody successful. And it unleashed that creativity, so we got the side benefit. And it's not something we turn off, we just do for people with disabilities. It's something that extends to all employees.
Yeah, we started off really just talking. So I initially, in one of our management meetings, planted the seed of thought, like, guys, we should probably look at our, employing people with disability. We actually have no one at our site that identifies as having a disability, so we sort of talked about that a little bit. Next management meeting, I talked about does anybody else know anyone who's got a disability? And it turned out a couple of the managers were like, oh yeah, I do, my son's so-and-so and whatever you, and so we sort of started a few conversations. So that was that initial period that maybe took 2 or 3 months. And then what we did, and Natalie's really good at this, like when I first met with Natalie, I wasn't really confident or sure about what I could ask or say, and I just asked her, Natalie, what can I ask in an interview, or what's inappropriate? I don't want to offend anyone. And she said, well, what would you ask somebody without a disability? Just interview them. No brainer. But so it's just, I guess we just talked, that's all we did. So I talked with the supervisors who do conduct the interviews now, talked with the managers. As we sort of employed more people, people within our own organisation that had already joined us started to approach me and say, well, by the way, you know, I actually have a disability that I wanted to talk to you about. And one particular young lady, we were having problems with her attendance. She was always off sick. I know she seemed a little bit disgruntled, but nobody had approached that. And it turned out that with her disability, we're impacting on her disability by putting her on shift work without really having a good consultation period with her. And it was really affecting her health and her well-being, and she was considering leaving us. She'd been with us since the hospital had opened. She's certainly not somebody, we wouldn't normally let anybody go at the drop of a hat anyway, but we wanted to try to retain her. So it was great that she let us know that she actually needed to go part-time and only work a day shift. We would never have known that if we hadn't had started that momentum. She simply would have left. And when I asked her, why did you not tell us this before, or why did you not speak to your manager? And she said, I was just scared. I didn't know what would be the outcome. Thought maybe I'd just be pigeonholed from that point on. So I think the open conversations has been the way that we've gone about educating our managers and making sure that we can speak openly with each other and ask those questions that people are fearful of, to make sure that they feel confident when they get to the point of interviewing and then also managing somebody with a disability within their team. I think the environment that we work in is great. Like, it's a hospital environment. People generally are working there because they want to work there, in that sort of caring type environment. So our own teams there have definitely welcomed everybody that, you know, obviously visually has a disability that they can see. Most of our employees that we've engaged through EPIC actually don't have a disability that you would acknowledge straight from meeting them, though.
The last question was, what would be the jobs appropriate for a person with a disability? Did anybody have that person working ultimately for the same boss as you do? Okay. How many people had that? And how many people had a job that had a career path to your job? Raise a hand, high and proud. That's what we're up against, because we tend to pigeonhole people, and we don't know what we don't know, and we're unaware of this. That's what we got slapped in the face about, is that we tend to project a paradigm on this that gets in the way from the very beginning.